Finally out in theaters this week, putting to bed the heated debates online, is the new Superman reboot, clearly based off of that Morgan Wallen song. And for a frame of reference of where I'm coming from, this was not even near one of my most anticipated movies of the summer. I know that's all the debate, that's all the rhetoric. Is it going to be good? Everyone's super into this. Not so much the case with me. I do like the occasional superhero movie. Kind of got burnt out on these after Endgame, so that's where I'm coming at these from. Did like Man of Steel though, thought that was pretty cool. I like the Batman, some others, but few and far between for the most part. It's really hard to win me over with these films nowadays. But I will say this, if you are a fan of Superman or you like the comics specifically and you really love this type of world, you're probably going to really like this film. There is a lot to like. There's also a lot I really did not like. I think it highly depends on the type of person you are. If you're in my camp, I don't know if this movie is going to win you over or sell you on an entire universe based off of it. But if you do love comic books specifically and you want that hyper-realistic comic book version of Superman, it feels like we have never gotten before, I feel like this movie is oddly unique compared to every other Superman. There's no other Superman like this one. So right off the bat, this movie is by James Gunn, and I did like Guardians of the Galaxy. The first movie specifically, I thought 2 was dog shit personally. Really liked number 3. So he doesn't always work for me because his brand of storytelling and humor, very hit or miss. I'll say this, I do think the guy who played Superman is a lot better than he was advertised and teased. I think he is actually as good or better than Henry Cavill. I know that's the big debate going on. Should they continue the Snyderverse? He sells you on the Superman character himself. I think he is a lot better at Superman than Clark Kent, I will say that. There's just something about Superman in general that would have been so hard to win me over going into this because I've just never really liked him as a superhero. He's not even near one of my favorites. There's something lazy about the story to me. The fact that he's basically immortal and his disguise is Clark Kent, like nobody could tell that's this guy with a pair of glasses though. Let me say this, I do like the way the action in this movie is framed in a certain sense because it's very close up, again, very photorealistic, like it's a comic book page in motion. When he's flying at the screen, it almost looks like you're watching a distorted VR video of his face coming at you and these giant monsters and just the scale of the entire universe. I appreciated that because, again, we have never seen that in a superhero movie done so unapologetically. I think this movie, if that is your thing, is probably going to be awesome. You're going to absolutely love the spectacle of this movie. I'm mixed on it. I like the style they were going for. The execution, a lot of the time, came off very, very cartoony and cheesy to me that did not fully work. And I do appreciate this movie for jumping right into it. There's basically no boot up to this. There's a couple of exposition scenes with font on the screen where they explain what's going on. The movie picks up, Superman has been beaten to a pulp, and you are just in it. No backstory, nothing. You are in the world as Superman is, action full-fledged and center over and over again. And I really appreciated that because I feel like Man of Steel took a good amount of time to build up. We keep doing these reboots of Superman and Batman. We don't need the origin story every single time. So I really liked that, even though in the same sense, I'm going to say right now, it was kind of a negative because I am not fanatical about Superman. I don't really know anything about this. So at no point in this movie did I really have any idea what was going on. There's a ton of exposition in this where you'll have characters talking to one another and they'll just do 10 to 15 minutes of dialogue with giant plot explanation because there's really no overarching story whatsoever that was set up to this film. It makes this movie feel natural. It feels like there's giant action set, then there's explanation. There's giant action set, then there's exposition. It just keeps going like this over and over again. But yeah, I had no idea what was going on. I forgot all of the origin of his parents. They briefly explained that. I really forgot who Lex Luthor is as a character. They briefly explain that as the movie goes along. So again, that's just my personal experience as the type of person I am in my relation to this franchise. Because if you're somebody who knows everything about Superman, you've read all of the comics, you know everything, you don't need any of that explanation. It's going to work even more than it worked for me. But for me, and speaking on behalf of maybe more casual fans who go to see this, I'm sure they will enjoy the action. I'm not sure they're really going to follow what's going on for the vast majority of this movie. I was kind of on the fence about how Lex Luthor is in this movie in general, but I do think for what he's asked to do, Nicholas Hoult is pretty good. If you can get over the fact he looks like a straight up adult parody Johnny Sins version of the character, but he was good for what he was asked to do, so was Lois Lane. I just don't think there was a whole lot to do because they are just here in spurts in between these giant sets of action. But in the end, this movie did not fully work for me for reasons I actually expected going into it because this is by James Gunn. He has a very selective style of humor and directing style when it comes to these superhero movies. And if you do not like his brand of humor, you don't like his previous work, I can all but guarantee you will hate this one because this is the most James Gunn movie of all of them. But he does this thing in all of his movies, including like the end of Guardians 1, where he just injects and forces humor into these superhero movies. And it just doesn't fully work for me. From the opening scene of this movie, characters are doing absolutely asinine things tonally that does not make any sense for the sake of humor. You have these giant battles going on in the background. You have people taking duck face selfies. Like, nobody seemingly cares at any point in the movie how devastating this state of the world is. You have these giant battles with alien creatures. Characters are just having a coffee, talking about lunch. It's as if nothing is happening 90 feet from them, which for some people, if that's your brand of humor, I'm sure you will get a great laugh out of this. You'll have a ton of fun. For me, completely takes me out of the movie. Hence, I like these movies like The Dark Knight and The Batman and movies like Man of Steel that are more hyper realistic. These takes on characters more so than the comic book fun vibe, because I feel like if you go for that vibe, there's no way you can tonally mesh up with any of the other stuff you're trying to do, any of the more serious content, which is what I'm really into. Like, for example, this movie is clearly trying to make some political commentary about immigration, and then there's some other stuff with the Lois Lane plot where they're trying to inject some heart, and to me, none of it lands because this movie is just a giant cartoon on screen, so I don't care about anything serious in the movie because it's just a giant cartoon. So if you can get over that, I'm really happy for you, and I'm sure you enjoyed this movie a little bit more than me, but for me, this movie suffers for the reason the majority of these modern Marvel movies do. They inject humor in the scenes they don't need to. They don't let the movie breathe. You never really get any emotional punch or heart out of the movies anymore because they are so afraid to let a movie marinate, let you feel anything. So sure, I find the action entertaining. I think it's pretty well acted. I think the art style is cool and unique compared to the majority of these movies. But if you're looking for anything more than just surface level, it's not really here because the tone of it does not allow anything to be more than just what you're watching visually. And at least for me at this point, that's why I come to these films, because we've gotten so many of these movies in the past 2 decades. I need something a little bit more than big fists hitting each other and action explosions. We've seen like 100 of these movies. How many more of these do we really need? Well, overall, guys, I did not hate this film by any means, but I am not in either camp of the extreme rhetoric. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, no, we need to go back to Man of Steel. Like, they're both fine for what they are. I enjoyed this movie for what it was. I thought the art style was pretty cool, had some cool action at certain points, but anything other than that, just being a mindless popcorn flick, not really my thing. I'm just going to be completely honest. So I'd wait for streaming if I had to do it over again. So I assume all of you are going to get around to seeing Superman this weekend. If you do, come back, comment, let me know if you agree, disagree. Again, I understand I'm in the extreme camp of kind of movie critics or reviewers or whatever who's not fanatical about superhero movies to begin with, so that's where I'm coming at this from. But as always, if you haven't already, join me down below, comment, like, subscribe. It all really helps the channel's algorithm. I'll see you in the next review. Peace!